Hi, I'm Nancy Friedman, the telephone doctor. Today's program is about communications, understanding and being understood, or in other words, avoiding being misunderstood. Just a while back, if we were doing a program like this, we might only need to be concerned about 3 potential methods to interact with our customers. For many years, we've communicated with people using letter, telephone, face-to-face communications. And now, with evolving technologies, there are 4 more channels that we're able to use to influence and communicate with our customers. And they are fax, voicemail, email, instant messaging. We're going to learn how to best communicate and not be misunderstood in these additional touch points of communication. How to avoid being curt and instead practice being courteous.
From curt to courteous, the 7 touch points of communication.
I know it sounds like a big job. How can we master the 7 touch points of communication? Well, actually, it's easier than you might think. You see, each one has similarities or things in common with the other communication pipelines. Let's look at one set of characteristics.
Synchronous and asynchronous.
Synchronous communication is an immediate two-way back-and-forth exchange of information. Both parties who are communicating need to be doing the same thing at the same time, one after the other. Touchpoint examples of synchronous communication methods are in face-to-face conversations, on the telephone, and using instant messaging. We use these synchronous communication methods when we want a real-time discussion where there's a need for immediate back-and-forth information exchange so decisions can be made rapidly.
Hey, Carrie, let's get together at lunch this week and go over that new project for the Walker Group. What day's good for you?
Sure. How about Thursday?
Sounds great. I'll see you then. Hey, Carrie, let's get together at lunch this week and go over that new project for the Walker Group. What day's good for you?
Sure, Joe. How about Thursday?
Okay, sounds great. We'll see you then.
Carrie, let's get together at lunch this week to go over that new project for the Walker Group. What day are you available?
Sure, Joe. How about Thursday?
Now, let's consider the opposite characteristic, asynchronous. These are methods where the communication is a one-way flow of information, and any replies are usually delayed. Asynchronous communication can still be a very effective method of dealing with customers or coworkers as long as both parties accept the lack of real-time back-and-forth interaction, which is inherent in asynchronous communications. Letter, fax, voicemail, email. These are all one-way messages. The expectation is you'll need to wait a period of time if a response is needed. Because they're very useful when immediate replies aren't time-sensitive, asynchronous communication methods can be very convenient for business. Each party can send and receive the message when it's convenient to their individual schedule and workload. Well, now we understand some of the features of synchronous and asynchronous communications. What other characteristics do these 7 touch points have in common? Well, consider this. Face-to-face, phone, and voicemail all rely on the spoken word. The written word is used for email, letter, instant messaging, and fax. And both spoken communications as well as the written word each have their own special characteristics which make them useful when conducting business communications. The purpose of this course is to raise the awareness about the various means we might use to communicate with our customers and coworkers. Now that we're aware of these 7 touch points, let's concentrate on some strategies to improve how we use them. Because the majority of customer communications still takes place on the telephone, we're going to concentrate on that area first. It's important to remember that most of the concepts we'll be covering also cross-apply to the other touch points.
Communication tools.
When you have a repair job to do at home, you probably have a toolbox. Well, there are tools you use with the spoken word too. These are your communication tools when you're on the telephone. Let's begin with voice. Unless you're communicating by video conference, there aren't visual signals when you're on the telephone. But you do have several other ways to get your meaning across. And the most important is your voice itself.
Voice, speed,
Your voice is the all-important delivery system for your words and thoughts. And here's an important first step. Make sure the other person has the opportunity to hear and understand you. We've all had the experience of having someone at the other end of the telephone or a voicemail message being difficult to understand. And sometimes it's because they talk too fast.
Yeah, Bob, this is Joe over at LMS Technologies. We need to decide what to do about the Wharton project.
You need to concentrate on speaking clearly and being understood. If people often say to you, "What?" or "I didn't understand you," take the hint. If you're speaking too fast, slow it down. The best way is to try and match the speed of your caller. Otherwise, you'll drive a fast talker crazy by talking too slow, or possibly confuse a slow talker by talking too fast. A few more voice factors you'll want to consider besides speed are:
Inflection.
have you ever had the experience of listening to a monotone voice?
Miss Jones, at Acme, customers are the very reason we're here. We're excited you're doing business with us.
Boring, and it sounds insincere. Remember to vary the inflection of your voice to keep it interesting and believable. Change the pitch of your voice.
Hi, Miss Jones. At Acme, customers are the very reason we're here. We're excited you're doing business with us.
Enunciation.
Ever run into someone who suffers from lazy lips?
Thanks for calling Roberta Labamba Rotunda and Associates. This is Meredith.
Work to enunciate clearly. It's important to speak distinctly and clearly so your ideas are understood.
Thanks for calling Roberta Labamba Rotunda and Associates. This is Meredith.
Volume.
If you're too loud or too soft, you'll distract your listener. Often someone too loud sounds like a bully.
Yeah, I'm going to be out of the office till the end of the day. So I won't be able to fax you the invoice till about 4.
Likewise, if your voice is too soft, you can come across as timid or uncaring, like someone who doesn't believe in what they're saying. Strive for the middle ground on volume. So when you use your voice, be very aware of your speed, inflection, enunciation, and volume. Now, let's cover our next point.
Tone of voice.
That's so important. It sets the mood of the entire conversation that follows. Your tone of voice on the telephone can be compared to the expression on your face when you're in an in-person setting. Tone of voice helps determine whether you're perceived as curt or courteous. Remember the old adage, it's not what you say, it's how you say it? Don't you agree? Any of us who use the telephone a lot have probably had this experience, calling and being attacked by a human buzzsaw.
RLRA.
Yes, David Smith, please.
Who's calling?
My name is Matt Coleman.
What company are you with?
Wilson Coleman and Company?
What's this in regard to?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
As you can see, tone of voice is critical. It's one of the ways the caller can determine your mood and meaning. When you answer the phone or ask questions in an aggressive, attacking tone of voice, you'll often get a negative reaction from the caller. And that's not just limited to the telephone. Even face-to-face, if someone comes across to you as angry or attacking, you might get defensive and be annoyed. Or worse, you go on the offensive and fight back. Either way, your organization loses. This is really getting the conversation off on the wrong foot. Let's see how to cure an aggressive tone of voice.
Good morning. Thanks for calling RLRA. This is Meredith.
Yes, David Smith, please.
Thank you. I'll ring David's office. And I'm speaking with?
Oh, yes, this is Matt. It's Matt Coleman with Wilson Coleman and Company.
Thanks, Mr. Coleman. I'll ring his office. David? Matt Coleman is on line 3.
Thanks, Meredith. Hey, Matt, it's David. Thanks for holding.
Well, David, we've read your quote, and we've decided to go ahead with the whole proposal.
Did you see how important it is to smile? Because yes, you really can hear a smile. What a difference! Here we saw the caller treated as someone whose call was welcome, not an interruption. The caller is never an interruption. The customer could sense from her tone of voice that he wasn't an intrusion. He felt welcome. Instead of scaring away business, her tone of voice helped the company and David succeed. And when you stop to think of it, why would anyone ever treat a customer in an unfriendly tone of voice?
Words used.
Next, let's talk about the words you use. Words can easily be misunderstood. When you're not careful with your words, mistakes often follow. Watch this.
Gonna be 60 tomorrow.
Oh, really? Happy birthday.
Here's another example of how words can be misunderstood. Has this ever happened to you?
When I get to the corner of Main and 4th, do I turn left?
Right.
Right?
No, left.
Left, right?
Right.
Why didn't you say so?
A better word would have been correct instead of right. Right can mean correct or turn right. The words you use explain your thoughts, and many words have several meanings. If you can be misunderstood, chances are you will be. So no matter which of the 7 touch points of communication you happen to be using, always work on making your meaning clear to the other party. A good way to check and see if the other party understands is to ask them to repeat what you said. Make sure they understand.
Let's be sure I gave you those directions correctly. Could you read them back to me, please?
Sure, thanks. You said that when I get to the corner of Main and 4th to turn left, not right.
Listener's perception.
After hearing your voice, tone of voice, and the words you use, how does the listener perceive your meaning? Let's look at that explosive emotional area known as the listener's perception. However well-meaning your intentions are, the listener's perception is the ultimate test. People's feelings can be hurt so easily, and as strong as human muscle and bone are, our feelings are really quite fragile. Negative or sarcastic remarks hurt, and the memory lingers. Watch this one.
By the way, that's a nice outfit. So where do they have a 70s costume shop around here?
Hey, I just got back from the hairstylist.
Oh, couldn't they take you?
You'll remember a person being sarcastic for years, even if they were just joking. We want to raise your awareness, raise your sensitivity as to how you come across to that person. Be aware of the listener's perception. Feelings are easily hurt. Okay, let's talk briefly about voicemail. Voicemail has become another important way to communicate asynchronously. Many of the points we've already covered also apply to using voicemail. Here are a few more points to help you get the best results when you leave a voicemail message. Keep it brief but friendly. Also, consider how well you know the person receiving the message. If you're leaving a message with someone who knows you, well, there are lots of shortcuts. You can be brief, friendly, possibly humorous, and leave a short message. If you're leaving a message for someone you don't know well, there are different guidelines. Explain who you are, your company, why you're calling. Be brief and leave return contact information. And when you leave your name, a good practice is to give your first name followed by your first and last name. Usually the next sentence is the reason you're calling. If the listener is struggling to decipher your name, they're distracted from the message. And this is critical. Leave your callback number twice and slowly. When you're long distance, it's a good idea to say what city and time zone you're in, like this.
Hi, Doug. This is Matt. Matt Coleman with Wilson Coleman & Company. I wanted to confirm our appointment on Thursday the 9th at 10 a.m. I'll have Karen and Linda with me to go over the program, so please let me know if this is a good time for you and that we're still on for the meeting. I'm in St. Louis, which is in the Central Time Zone, at 314-291-1012. Again, that's 314-291-1012. Thanks very much.
Communicating face-to-face. Facial expressions.
In face-to-face communications, you have all the tools you used on the telephone, plus now you have facial expressions and body language. Both are nonverbal signals that are very influential. Facial expressions are usually obvious. Without using words, your face can communicate an entire range of emotions, which include happy, puzzled, unhappy, and downright angry. In fact, the expression on your face can support what you're saying, or it can nullify it. Watch this.
Hi, welcome to Robata La Bamba Rotunda and Associates.
In business communication, it's important for your facial expressions to agree with the words you're using. Now, normally that comes naturally.
Welcome to Robata, La Bamba, Rotunda and Associates.
However, we've all had the experience of someone telling us to have a nice day when their facial expressions and other visual cues tell us the opposite.
Body language.
And finally, body language is another hint to the inner feelings of the person you're dealing with. That's Joe in a defensive position. That's open and communicative. Slouching can be a sign of disinterest. No matter what that person says,
Oh, really? That's interesting.
the body language sends another message that you and what you're saying are not very important. Now, Joe's receptive and paying attention. His body language is sending the right message.
Communicating by the written word.
Okay, let's move on to the written word. And in many ways, the written word can be more easily misinterpreted than the spoken word. As we discussed, the spoken word on the telephone has ways to influence the meaning and mood to the caller. In person, you have additional ways to influence the other person: facial, body language. The written word does not have the benefit of tone of voice or a pleasant facial expression. It relies on the reader needing to interpret the writer's mood and meaning. We use written communication in letters, faxes, emails, and instant messaging. The written word can be interpreted many different ways by a reader, so it's important to work for the maximum clarity when delivering your messages. Why leave the interpretation of your written communication to chance? So when we send a letter, fax, email, or use instant messaging, how do we influence the reader to have a positive interpretation of our meaning? Well, before sending a message, always consider how it might be misread or misinterpreted.
Here's a new email from Joe. Let's see. I have the new ad campaign layouts. Come to my office.
Yes, sir. I will.
Most people are busier today than ever before, and because of that, we have a tendency, especially on email, to send short, clipped messages. Remember, it takes a lot less time to add a few words than to try and straighten out misunderstandings and disputes later on.
I better soften this up and make it more reader-friendly.
Oh, here's a new email from Joe. Let's see. Matt, when you have a few minutes, please come by my office. I have the new ad campaign layouts to show you. Thanks. All right. I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Just a few extra words will usually soften the message and make it more reader-friendly. That works for letters, especially for email and fax messages too. Let's see how else we can signal a friendly intent. Whenever you get a letter through the mail, it normally starts with a greeting like, "Dear Nancy," and then the letter gets down to business.
Let's see. Email from Meredith. Can we switch lunch hours on Thursday? No way. I got things to do.
Just like with a letter, it's important to use a friendly greeting on your emails. Use a few words like, "Hi, Nicole," or "Good afternoon, Matt." Using a brief greeting at the start of an email can positively influence the tone of the entire message. It's your welcome signal, your mood setter. It helps the entire message begin on the right foot, sets a pleasant tone, and it marks you as courteous and increases the chance you'll get cooperation. Let's try it again.
Email from Meredith. Let's see. Hi, Nicole. I need a friendly favor. Can we switch lunch hours on Thursday? I have an appointment. Thanks. Sure. I'll let Meredith know that's fine.
Another good practice is to close your email message with thanks. If there's one overriding principle governing communication using the written word, it's this: be obviously friendly. The person you send a message to by letter, fax, email, or instant message shouldn't need to guess at your mood or intent. Be obviously friendly in writing, and you'll go a long way towards lessening resentment, disputes, and misunderstandings. Let's recap what we covered today. Synchronous is two-way real-time communication, such as telephone, face-to-face or instant messaging. Asynchronous means one-way communication, where a message is sent and there's a delay in the response, such as email, voicemail, fax, or letters. Then we talked about how best to use the spoken word, whether on the telephone, voicemail, or face-to-face. Here are the tools for the telephone. Voice. Your voice is the all-important delivery system for your words and thoughts. Tone of voice. It sets the mood of your conversation. Your tone of voice helps determine whether you're perceived as curt or courteous. Words used. Remember how easily words can be misinterpreted? Work at making your meaning clear. Listener's perception. The listener's perception is so important. After hearing your voice, tone of voice, and the words you use, how are you perceived? Your caller needs to feel that you're friendly and that you care. Now let's go on to the other spoken word communication channels, voicemail and face-to-face communications. Voicemail includes all your communication tools for the telephone. When using voicemail, remember to practice brevity and be especially friendly. Remember, you'll need a different approach depending on how familiar you are with the party you're calling. Along with your city and time zone, always leave your phone number twice and slowly. With face-to-face communication, these were the two important visual components to keep in mind: facial expressions and body language. Both your facial expressions and your body language need to be in agreement with the words you're saying. Next, we covered communication ideas for the written word, how best to avoid being curt and to be regarded as courteous. We all need to work to avoid being misunderstood. Remember that written communication is subject to the reader's interpretation. Let's work at making our written communication reader-friendly. We need to be obviously friendly. And when using email, remember to use a brief greeting such as, "Hi, Nancy," or "Good afternoon, Joe." Okay, there you have it. Ideas to help you to go from curt to courteous. Ways to master the 7 touch points of communication. We hope you've enjoyed today's program and will put these new ideas to use. I'm Nancy Friedman, the Telephone Doctor. Thank you for watching.